A major social goal is to assist African nations and governments which are faced with the real population problem, a massive and overwhelming migration from the villages and the countrysides to the overcrowded slums of the cities. Usually, the youth leave the countryside for two reasons. One is that they cannot make a living which will allow them to attain many essentials. Another reason is their susceptibility to the attractions, deceptive attractions I may add, of a Western lifestyle proliferating in the cities. Hence, undertaking a program of stabilizing the hemorrhaging from the villages while simultaneously restoring their health and vitality is of utmost importance for African governments. The problems of burgeoning cities are not unlikely to be solved in the near future. Therefore, the prudent course of action is to address the problem at its source. Successful village development will ease the burden on African governments by providing an organic agricultural extension which will greatly enhance the nutritive food intake of their people, while also providing the villagers with livelihoods. The restoration of morality by reviving traditional values while providing engaging life-generating activities will greatly assist African governments in their ultimate objective of reviving African glory. The African Restoration Village becomes an associate institution being promoted as a living and learning center. It does not follow the Western model of individualism. The Restoration Village will consist of, but not be limited to, the teaching of specific professions and arts such as sustainable agriculture, preventive health care, metalworking, weaving, furniture making, soya product manufacturing, ceramics, and basket making. All such professions will be rooted in an understanding of the spirit of nature and its natural ecology. In effect, it will constitute dedicating the individual to the eternal life cycles of the Creator. If we are to be successful in our efforts to restore balance to humanity and the planet, we must institutionalize our struggle. Doing so demonstrates a high level of seriousness, tenacity, and vision. In the future, it is recommended that we establish a small accredited ecology and nature ENN Institute or university for an enrollment of 60 to 90 students. This institution will teach the required university courses, yet it will specialize in ecology and nature courses as the major for all enrolled students, causing the students to become more sensitive to their physical and spiritual needs and their relationship to the environment. We prefer to have a small, highly sought-after institution in the initial stage for minimizing management, monitoring, and budgetary concerns. Since ecology and nature comprise such a vast arena, the graduate students are certain to be multifaceted masters of several disciplines. This institution will inspire governments to create jobs for its graduates. The jobs for ENN graduates will aid in creating a human shield around the country's ecosystem that will by far supersede the value of salaries. In addition, their presence will stimulate further and continuous dialogue on the subject, which shall broaden the national consciousness and interest. Thereafter, as additional individuals, entities, and countries acquire an increased level of ENN interest and understanding, they too will enlist in the struggle. More than likely, they will be inspired to contribute and or experiment with similar ideas. This could project Africa into the forefront of the struggle to save Mother Earth. This new sense of pride could become the catalyst to foster homegrown solutions to many other problems besetting the continent. Understandably, one of the biggest impediments to the sons and daughters of Africa ushering in the new age of heaven on earth is the necessity, under current influences, to obtain income in some form of currency in order to provide many basic necessities. Initially, to some extent, it may be necessary to operate with the global monetary system to accomplish many important tasks. Key to our success will be our resistance to the trend toward the deification of money and materialism. Nevertheless, the village will strive for self-sufficiency and independence from the global market economy. Fundamentally, this will prevent being in the position of serving the global market economy rather than focusing more towards serving our internal needs. This is a necessity because its record clearly demonstrates that the global market economy is not designed to serve the needs of the masses. European colonizers and more recently the development partners have long-range, far-reaching plans. What they deem as being in Europe's best interests are simply not in Africa's best interests. The plan of European powers historically is to develop conditions favorable for the continued exploitation and economic dependency of Africa. Subsequently, economic policies are formulated elsewhere and dumped on African countries, a process that they have no control over. This is why all of their development plans for Africa, even the nice-sounding progressive ones, must be carefully scrutinized. Though some may believe they are introducing modern development in medical care for humanitarian reasons, the end result is all too often the exploitation of a laboring populations of Africans, a population increasingly divorced from their cultural practices and thus their sense of themselves, serving European interests. Overt exploitation is thusly concealed behind rhetoric and mechanisms that are increasingly more subtle and difficult to identify. These policies ostensibly promote economic development, but the primary objective is the development of African people in a manner contrary to their nature via the imposition of a culture that will completely destroy the African image. They give us the economic incentive to encourage our partnership in the destruction of African consciousness society. The Restoration Village is not what is commonly recommended for or thought of as African development, for the primary reasons of being focused on the rural areas and creator-centered. The early stages of developing the Restoration Village, the government or local authorities should grant the use of the land without rent and with reasonable assurances of indefinite tenure. In exchange, the land would be made productive and the people of the surrounding areas would draw on it as a resource for learning how to transform their villages and lands into productive, self-sufficient societies. These living and learning centers would show by example how to live successfully without massive expenditures, which are usually beyond the means of overburdened national budgets. Everyone who comes to learn at the Restoration Villages will return to where they live and strive to replicate the whole model. Or they may only take back with them certain skills and aspects that could help them in their current context. In addition, the Restoration Village will be a major benefit for farming techniques and basic agri-technology skills that will boost food production and human resource productivity of the community and the nation in ways coinciding with the objectives of African governments. The objective of the Restoration Village vision is to make a success out of what we Africans have and control. Africa's greatest wealth is its human resources. We must protect them, develop them, and structure production to reflect their needs. With proper planning and excess of income, Overconsumption expenditures will result from growing our own food, making our own clothing, and providing other necessities of daily life directly with our labors. Income will also be generated by marketing produce and products and the establishment of service industries and apprenticeships. Africa has the largest concentration of people not directly in contact with or directly affected by the ravages of modern science and Western technology. Upward of 90% of Africa's population south of the Sahara have had very little contact with modernity beyond the automobile and recently the cell phone. In areas such as these, our people will recognize, appreciate, and respond to the advancement brought about through simplicity and modesty. Villages will build physical strength as nutrition improves and moral strength to effectively challenge and overcome lust and greed. Key components of the village restoration plan are: 1. To promote research and development of the underutilized reservoir of indigenous knowledge, systems, science, and technologies, methods for the restoration of sustainable and viable African communities. Indigenous Pharmacological Science, IPS. IPS will provide the basis for sustainable development and expansion of natural plant-based preparations for treatment and eradication of sickness and disease. In addition, IPS will be instrumental in synthesizing herbal plant nutritional supplements. Indigenous agri-systems will be instrumental in reintroducing a variety of highly nutritional, ecological, adaptable, and high-yielding indigenous food crops. These food crops could play a key role in ameliorating the problem of hunger, malnutrition, and food security. Indigenous nutritional science should be developed and expanded in conjunction with indigenous agri-systems. The interfacing of these two systems will result in the creation of food products and beverages of exceptional nutritional value. These products will aid in the correction and prevention of nutritional deficiencies prevalent in many African countries. 2. To function as research centers and seed repositories. Seeds will be saved, replanted, and developed. In addition, the villages are to serve as living laboratories to rediscover, test, and develop native and ancient species and varieties of food, fiber, and healing crops, and thereafter teach how they can best be reintroduced into the current context. Growing native species of crops is extremely important for maintaining biodiversity, which benefits the soil, natural ecology, and agricultural productivity. The native crops are diverse, strong, drought-resistant, have medicinal uses, and carry with them a wealth of knowledge. To research indigenous African botanical science and develop biophyto-derived formulations from indigenous African flora. These preparations will be used to control, prevent crop diseases and pests. There are an abundance of tree plants, neem, papaya, that when properly formulated are highly effective controls for use in agriculture. 4. To expand water harvesting, purification, and sanitation methods. The accessibility of clean and adequate water resources is key to productive, health, and sustainable African communities. Therefore, we must devise practical ways and means to develop water collection and water storage systems. Simple collection systems for harvesting rainwater runoff, home storage water systems, underground village storage tanks, and manually constructed catchment ponds are encouraging examples of what can be constructed using locally available resources. Purification and sanitizing of water can be accomplished by using biophytocoagulants and disinfectants. Specific indigenous plants, trees, have properties which remove impurities from water and sanitize, disinfect drinking supplies. The seeds of the African moringa tree is a noted example. Therefore, we will draw focused attention on researching and developing this area. Consider the book of Exodus, the 15th chapter, verses 22 through 25.
So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness, and found no water. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore the name of it was called Marah. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, What shall we drink? And he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord shewed him a tree, which when he had cast into the waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them.
Solar water disinfection, slow sand and gravel filtration are additional means to purify and disinfect water for potable use. 5. To promote soil fertility via the utilization of ancient practices. Since man is formed from the dust of the earth, the soil will be of significant importance. The wisdom of the Bible reminds us that the land must lie fallow every 7th year to preserve its strength.
And the Lord spake unto Moses in Mount Sinai, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye come into the land which I give you, then shall the land keep a Sabbath unto the Lord. 6 years thou shalt sow thy field, and 6 years thou shalt prune thy vineyard, and gather in the fruit thereof. But in the 7th year shall be a Sabbath of rest unto the land, a Sabbath for the Lord. Thou shalt neither sow thy field, nor prune thy vineyard.
This practice obviously influences life, living, and good health. Subsequently, it is of critical importance how we feed and treat the soil during the 6 years of use. A key component of maintaining the health of the soil during the years that it is being worked is returning to it the nutrients that it yields and which subsequently pass through our bodies. These must ultimately be returned to the soil in the form of compost, along with other organic matter. 6. To function around divine order and an Afrocentric value system. We will utilize truth-centered science and indigenous knowledge systems. Also, other technologies and methods that are compatible with the objective. The villages will become known as living and learning centers that pursue holistic research and utilize methods of teaching integrated with daily life, an antithesis of chaos, discord, disharmony. Instead of individualism, there will be a natural social ecology. One of the major objectives is to halt the advance of sickness and death in the country, and thereafter provide light for the entire continent. 7. To integrate tree husbandry for food and fuel is a key component of the village restoration plan. Again, I go to the Bible, the book of Deuteronomy, the 20th chapter and the 19th verse.
When thou shalt besiege a city a long time, in making war against it to take it, thou shalt not destroy the trees thereof by forcing an axe against them, for thou mayest eat of them, and thou shalt not cut them down. For the tree of the field is man's life, to employ them in the siege.
We may discern from this verse that the tree, complemented by the field crops, herbs of the field, was intended to be the primary source of man's food. Man has long forgotten that the tree is the staff of life, not wheat. It was the fall of man from the Genesis ideal that caused him to resort to animal husbandry. Prior to his fall, human life was primarily sustained by the tree. Thus, it is not coincidental that a major focus and thrust of our ecological struggle concerns trees. Our struggle for the trees is our struggle for the life of man on the planet. Just as the tree was an integral part of the former Genesis, so must it be in our new ecological Genesis. Foods grown on trees provide protein, essential amino acids, milk for children and adults, and all other vitamins and minerals required to maintain a perfectly healthy body and mind. In addition to that, they increase the oxygen content of the air, reduce greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, draw the rain, and prevent soil erosion, while requiring less fertilizer, if at all, and minimal care. In addition, trees will yield their produce for generations. Therefore, we should strengthen existing tree husbandry by planting 1,000 acres of various selected trees for food and fuel. To coincide with this planting, we should sponsor a comprehensive course on trees, the staff of life. This will have many benefits and positive ramifications that shall positively enhance the ecological process. For instance, it can eventually change the status of animal husbandry, which consumes the majority of the grains grown and water used. We also note that the leaves of the tree are to be used for medicine for the air, for the soil, and for man.
And by the river upon its bank, on this side and on that side, shall grow all trees for food, whose leaf shall not fade, neither shall its fruit be consumed. It shall bring forth new fruit according to its months, because their waters issued out of the sanctuary, and its fruit shall be for food, and its leaf for medicine.
And in closing, to all of you, the fate of an individual or a nation will always be determined by the degree of his or its harmony with the forces and laws of nature. And never forget that. Allow me to repeat that. The fate of an individual or a nation will always be determined by the degree of his or its harmony with the forces and laws of nature. The fullness of life depends upon a harmonious relationship with the natural laws. You must feel your kinship with the earth and once again move to protect it from abuse. You must develop a sense of oneness with your environment and realize your dependence upon it. Thereafter, your growing respect for the earth will prevent and check further its destruction. Selah.
Let's get our house in order. Let's get our house in